Welcome to your e-learning video for today. Today's assignment, you're going to be working on a cumulative review. So just one of those assignments where you do a little bit of everything. So I just wanted to point out a couple of problems just to remind you about before you get started on that. So here's the first one, not the first one in your assignment, but the first one I thought you might have some problems kind of remembering what to do. Trying to write the equation of a line that goes through these 2 points. And so as you do that, remember the first thing you want to do is you're going to be using point slope form to write your equation. But before you can do that, you need to, first of all, figure out what the slope is between those 2 points. And so remember, slope is rise over run. And to find the rise, you subtract the y's. So you're going to use this equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So go ahead and figure out the slope between those 2 points. What do you get for the slope in this problem? Okay, so you should have taken 4 minus negative 10, which is 14. And then you should have taken 4 minus negative 3, which is 7. And you end up with a slope of 2. Once you have that slope of 2, you're going to put it in point slope form. So remember, point slope form, you're basically going to fill in 3 spots. You're going to fill in a spot next to the y. You're going to fill in a spot in front of the parentheses. You're going to fill in a spot next to the x. So if we use this first point, negative 3, negative 10, where does that negative 3 go? Okay, it would go next to the x, and you would put down a plus 3. Okay, what number would you put next to the y? Okay, you should put down the plus 10. Since we put the 3 next to the x, we got to put the 10 next to the y. And remember, it's always the opposite signs. And then remember, in front of the parentheses, what number are we going to put there? Okay, that's why we found the slope, is so we knew what number to put in front of the parentheses. So we'll put a 2 in front of those parentheses. And now remember, from here, it's just a matter of rearranging that. So if you rearrange that formula to get it in slope-intercept formula, which one of your answers would you get here? Okay, so as you distribute, you would get 2x plus 6. And then when you move the 10 over, it's going to become a minus 10. And so you're going to end up with 2x minus 4. And so the answer in that box would be y equals 2x minus 4. You don't have to put the y equals because it's already in that problem. Okay, another problem I wanted to kind of remind you about was a problem that looks like this one. It says to factor the expression. Okay, factoring, we spent a lot of time this semester working on factoring. This one has 3 terms. And so remember, with 3 terms, that's where you want to use your x and you want to make your chart. And so if you remember, when you go to make your x, the middle term is what goes at the bottom of the x, so 10w at the bottom in this case, and then you multiply the first and the last together to put it at the top. So w squared times 21 would be 21w squared. And remember, our goal is to figure out numbers that you can add to get 10 and multiply to get 21. So what combination will work to add to give you 10 and multiply to give you 21? Okay, hopefully you found 7 and 3. And so remember, what we do with those is those go into our chart over here. The first term is what goes in the first box. So w squared goes in the first box. The plus 21 goes in this last box down here. And then the 7w and 3w, those are what go in the other 2 squares here. And so now remember, you can look for a greatest common factor, or you can, once you find a greatest common factor, you can divide to figure out these other boxes. But in this case, you would have a w here because w squared and 7w will both divide by w. This has to be a w as well because of the greatest common factor, or you can think w times w has to be w squared. This is a 7, and this is a 3. And so your answer would just be w plus 7 and w plus 3. And so that's what we mean by factor. So when you see that problem, kind of remember that. And I think you have 2 problems like that on your assignment where you're factoring. And then the last question I wanted to remind you about was the quadratic formula question, which is towards the end. It may actually be the last problem on your assignment. Okay, this time it says to solve, to find the solutions. And so that's different than factoring. Okay, to solve it means that we're going to use the quadratic formula. You can factor it and set your factors equal to 0, but you can also use that quadratic formula. So if you don't have that in front of you, that's why I wanted to review it here. Remember, our quadratic formula, that's the one that had the 3 pieces. And so it's negative b, and then plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And then all of that got divided by 2a. And so our 3 pieces in this problem is you figure out negative b, you figure out b squared minus 4ac, and you figure out what 2a is. So in this particular problem, what would you use for the negative b? Okay, so b is 11, so you would use negative 11. Remember, this is in the order A, B, C. Okay, for b squared minus 4ac, what would that simplify to? Okay, so for b squared minus 4ac, you should have taken 11 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10. And so when you redo that, you get 121 minus 40, which gives you 81 for b squared minus 4ac. And then what would you use for 2a? 2a would be 2 because a is 1, so 2a would be 2. So you're going to take negative 11 and you're going to add the square root of 81 and then take that answer divided by 2. And then you do the same thing with a minus sign. So remember, the square root of 81 is equal to 9. So you'll take negative 11 plus 9, which is negative 2, and then negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Then you'll do the same thing, but you'll subtract. Negative 11 minus 9 is negative 20. Negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10. And so our two answers are negative 1 and negative 10. If you replace the x with a negative 1, you get 0. If you replace x with a negative 10, you get 0. And so that's why those are the two solutions to that equation. So you're going to be doing problems like that on your cumulative review, as well as some other problems today. Again, if you get stuck on something, you don't remember how to do it, send me an email, send me a message through Canvas Messenger, and I'll get back with you to remind you how to do that particular problem on your cumulative assignment. So get with me if you have any questions. If not, good luck. That's the end of your video for today. And so again, take care.